few things I want you to know about me. One, I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. Two, I think most people are kind and good. Three, storms of this world are going to come. If you live long enough, you'll encounter the storms in life. But life is still very, very good. And four, if you want to pick a fight and really piss me off, put a lawsuit on my doorstep Father's Day weekend. I remember where I was this day 18 years ago, like so many of you. I had returned to Presbyterian College twice in 3 weeks. I'd gone there to play football, and everybody in town was excited. It was in the newspapers. We talked about it in the media. My family and friends, everyone was beyond excited. I was grateful. And I remember getting there, and it wasn't for me. But growing up the oldest of 4 sons in a household where I felt a lot of responsibility, I didn't know how to quit. I didn't think it'd be okay. So I went home, told mom and dad, I said, I'm done. I got to hang the cleats up. And it was very embarrassing, and it hurt to know that I had gone somewhere and everybody had been excited for me, and everybody who'd been along my journey with me. And then I walked away from it. And in that moment, there was a little bit of a loss of identity, right? This young guy at 18 years old who felt responsible for a lot of things, who come through life with accolades, who was known as the good old boy in town, went to school and couldn't complete something he had started. I had to make a change. So what would my new identity become? And I fell in love with the business department at Presbyterian College in upstate South Carolina. I started reading John Maxwell and some others. I started running small businesses. At 19, I had a concession stand business for the college and a contract with Pepsi, Frito-Lay. And I started to think, maybe I could be good at this. I had the greatest job on campus and had a key to the dining hall where I'd go clean the floors in the dining hall 5 nights a week. What I thought was just a great way to make $105.26 in 5 days ended up being one of the greatest gifts as I started the next journey of my life. So here I was going through school, thinking about who I wanted to be and who everybody told me I had to be. So I graduate college and I go work for a Fortune 15 company, one of the best educations I could have ever gotten. And I remember standing on stage. I'd just gotten married. We were living in East Tennessee. And I'm standing on stage in front of 550 peers. And I win an award for National Rookie of the Year. And it is one of the most intoxicating moments of my life. And I remember thinking to myself, I want this every stinking day. So when I got home, I worked to make that happen again and again and again. I poured myself into my work. I actually sat down on my couch one night and I started writing a book. It's called Millionaire by 30. Because if I could become a millionaire by 30, maybe I would be important. Maybe I'd be able to share something like I'd read in all these other books. Maybe I could become someone of influence and significance, right? But what I found myself doing was creating this individual in my mind that I wanted to become and thought I had to be. Because I started to see everybody else's definitions and standards and expectations in my life. My personal life, my career, my relationships, and my service to other people. So I poured myself into that and I was proud of it. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with pouring yourself into things that have a cause and a meaning and that you're supposed to do. But what I find very interesting is a lot of times in our lives, we're willing to ask everyone else's opinion, but we don't pause long enough to find our own. So I kept through this corporate Fortune 15 world. More awards, more travel, more accolades, more money. I found that I was good at it. I found that I was valuable to the company and created worth because of production. And I didn't know what was happening, but looking back, 18 years later, I see the shift in my mindset. I went from those core values I'd been given in a fantastic home growing up and started to value the money and the things and the achievement. And it drove me in a way that damn near killed me. I would continue forward in that Fortune 15 world. I met some incredible people. I had mentors and coaches and folks who poured into me. And I remember the very first guy, his name was Henry Burkett, and I went to see him over Easter weekend, my senior year. And I'd gone to the local Goodwill to pick up some pants. And if you don't know what a Goodwill is, it's like a secondhand store here in the States. And I remember picking out a pair of pants, and I had about $20 of clothing on with a $7 pair of pants from the Goodwill. And I walked in, and Henry took a chance on a young man coming out of school, and it changed my life forever. But what Henry could not prepare me for were those lessons beyond the transaction. So life continues forward. More accolades, more awards, money. I'm able to provide for my family and do things that I didn't know I'd be able to do. I leave that industry and I get into technology, got into IT. I couldn't even spell IT, but somehow they found me and gave me a position. And it was the same thing. I want to be number one. I want to be the best. I want to be top. And if I'm not, then I'm failing. And there's no place for number two. You have to be the best. You have to be perfect. So I continued to pour myself into my business, in my role. And the thing was, is along these 16 years, before this moment in my life, before the storm came, I met incredible people who were shaping me and molding me, and I had no idea because I didn't slow down long enough to look and ask. So, Father's Day weekend. I'm heading downtown on a Friday morning. About mid-morning, I've had some meetings to round out the week. I'm excited. I love being a dad. I've got two little boys, Clark and Wyatt. And Father's Day is important for me because my father and my wife's father live nearby too. So we all get together, and we have 4 generations in one place. Jamie, my wife, calls. She says, I think something just came in the mail that you need to know about. And I remember where I was. I'm driving down Highway 321 in the middle of nowhere, in the backwoods, heading downtown. And I had the music up real loud and the windows down, and it changed. Turned the music off, rolled the windows up, and I drove home just heavy. And I walked in the back door, and I knew what it was. There were rumors this would happen. And I thought it'll never happen to me. Look at all the wonderful things I did. Look at all the money I made for the company. Look at all the people who liked me and enjoyed working with me. Look at all this stuff that I did. So I walk in the door, and I've looked in her eyes thousands of times, but I'd never seen fear like this. And then there was an 1.5 inch thick packet, and it was a lawsuit. And she said, what are we going to do? I'm trying to be the husband, the strong man. I grabbed her, and I said, I love you. We're going to be fine. And I kissed her forehead. And I had no idea what we were going to do. That's the truth. But it was Father's Day weekend, right? It was time for us to go celebrate with our kids. And the last thing I wanted to do was make them think something was wrong. So, of course, I hid it from them. We went out that weekend. I hid it from everybody else. I was embarrassed and ashamed. And I was afraid that if I told my family, what would they think of me? So we went out that weekend. It was a nice little reprieve to a degree. It's kind of, have you ever been in a situation where you get hit with something that shocks you, but then you get taken out of that situation for just long enough to almost forget it, or at least pretend that you don't have to worry about it for a few days? That's what happened. We went fishing. And I remember this. I'll never forget it. We went fishing at the pond. The boys were casting out in the water. And that's one of the things that I do to relax my mind and to get away. It was one of those beautiful days in Columbia, South Carolina. And we spend the summer, y'all. If you've never been there, it's very, very hot. It's very humid. We smell like sweat and bug spray all summer long. But we're fishing. The best thing that happened that weekend was my son had a fish get up close to the bank, and it got off the hook. And he said, Dad, I'm so upset. I said, well, son, how big was the fish? He said, it was this big. And I said, no. I grabbed his hands, being a good father. I grabbed his hands and I spread them out as far as you can stretch. I said, the ones that get away are always this big, son. Unless you're at church, then you can tell the truth. So we got through the weekend. We get into Monday. And I told you earlier, there are storms that come in your life. This was my big storm. I was not prepared. I didn't know how to handle it. I went through all the emotions from anger to betrayal to feeling like a criminal to doubting myself to wondering what was wrong with me. Had I done what they said I had done? And so my wife looked at me and said, Did you do it? Well, no. But I want to lay in this bed. I don't want to get out of it, at least not for a week or two. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want us talking about it. Evans, you got to get up and go do what you do and do it well. You got to feed this family. And I was paralyzed. Told you I love Jesus, but I cussed a little. I didn't want to pray about it. Didn't want to talk to God. I didn't want anybody to know. And it took 1 year and 13 days for that storm to end. And over that period of time, I pulled myself back from family, friends, and I questioned everything I had learned the past 15, 16 years in business and what I believed. Because that's what storms do, right? They're coming for you and they don't discriminate on age, race, faith, time, where you are geographically. They don't care. They come for you with the intent of hurting you. But what I learned at the very end of this is you can not outrun it, but you can damn sure outlast it. If you know how and if you're prepared to put up a fight. Storms come in all different ways. This was my season. So we started to fight. We got through this lawsuit, 1 year, 13 days. But the problem with storms is they often leave an aftermath, right? We live in South Carolina. We get hit with a lot of hurricanes. And if you saw in the Bahamas recently, this past week with Duren, the destruction and the aftermath is insane. There was a lot of cleanup I had to do in my life. I was beaten, I was battered, but I was not broken. So come July of that following year, lawsuit ends. It's a Sunday. It's the first day I can talk with my clients. I started calling people from the church parking lot after church. That was my first thing. I'm going to go get back into business. I've got to feed my family. We are going broke, and I can't be broke. This is not okay. It's not who I am. Started chasing things again, and I put on my blinders, and I told Jamie, I was like, honey, are you okay with me going for it? She said, do what you have to do to feed us. I neglected my health. I neglected some relationships. And then I went and chased it thinking I was winning. I was actually losing. February the following year, I ended up at the doctor's office. Blood pressure through the roof, too much weight. He said, Evans, you got to change something in your life. I said, well, doc, I don't know what that means. He said, you need an outlet, son. I had to find people that I could speak with that had nothing to do with the transaction. See, I'm a firm believer in working a relationship for business well beyond the transaction because the transaction is not the goal. But I'd forgotten that in this time. So I got poured into LinkedIn and I started talking with people around the world. And technology is so amazing. There's so many of you sitting around the globe watching this morning and sharing your time with us. I went out and I started talking to folks around the globe. And it was such a healing process because I realized that everybody's going through their own storm. We don't like to talk about it because we live in this comparison society. So over those next several months, I started to repair things. But I had to really dive deep into who I was because I did not ever want to go back there. And that's when I realized there were 3 critical realizations that I had to make. Number 1, I had to allow myself to redefine success for my life. If you're going through a storm right now, or if you know that you're going to have one on the horizon, or if you think you're never going to go through one and it shows up one day, I want you to remember that. We try to live out the definition, standards, and expectations other people put on our lives, and we start living for them and not us. I believe each and every one of us is a uniquely, divinely created individual with an opportunity to do incredible things. We talk about thumbprints, right? We all know that no one has the same two people have thumbprint that matches. Different DNA, different likes. What about success? Let me be very clear what redefined success does not mean. It does not mean you get to throw a target on a wall, that you throw a dart, and then you draw a circle around it and say, I hit the mark. That's not redefining success. That's manipulation. That's trying to make your life match a definition because it's easy. So what I did is I started thinking about all the lessons I learned those last 16 years. What was success? And I came up with this formula kind of by accident. That's where the name of the company, Care to Succeed, comes from. C is for commit. A, appreciate. R, reciprocate. E, equip. The number 2, is you never do it alone. They redefine success. If you're going through a storm, I urge you to sit down and say, where am I committed? To who am I committed? Where is my time going? Number 1. Number 2, do I appreciate the opportunities that have been given to me? 3, am I giving back to those who have given so much to me? And 4, what am I doing to equip myself, my family, my customers? Again, personal life, your career, relationships, and your service. It's different for all of us. Number 2, recognize the value and significance of your story. There's a note above my desk, and it says, do something significant in order to become significant. That was the mindset 16 years ago. I remember flying at 30,000 feet, coming back from a business trip. If you think what you do for a living doesn't matter, take a step back and think about all the stories you could tell of moments that you have with people. I call them human moments. It's that moment where it's nothing about business, but it's an opportunity for me to engage in your life and you to engage in mine. Sitting on a plane, I missed a connection from Memphis back to Charlotte, and I'm angry. And I remember getting to the hotel. There's 60 of us going in there for a room. I get my key and I go to my room and I open the door and I hear the shower running. Clearly it was somebody else's room. So I march back downstairs. I'm furious. And I get down to the desk, slam the key down, and say, I need another key. They say, sorry, Mr. Duren, we'll get you one. I go back, I sleep 2 hours. I get to the airport the next morning, and I get on a plane. I'm a nervous flyer. I sit by a lady named Mary, and she looked nervous too. And I said, Mary, are you flying business or pleasure? Horrible question. If you fly and talk with somebody next to you, don't ask that question. Find another way to say it. She said, neither. I'm heading to Florida. My sister is dying, and I'm going to tell her goodbye. My heart sank. I had spent the last 24 hours pissed off that I could not get home to my wife and my child. But I was sitting at 30,000 feet talking with a lady who was going to do something I did not want to do. We prayed together. We talked about it. She shared her memories of her sister. And I got in the car at the airport and I just sobbed. And then I started thinking about other things. I've got a friend who's a client and a friend. And going through this lawsuit, I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. And I called him at the end and I said, I need to tell you what happened and where I've been. I didn't call you not because I don't care about you. I didn't call you because I didn't want to get you dragged into this. And he said, Evans, I need to tell you something. My father passed away 4 months ago. It broke my heart. I wasn't there for him. He said, I wanted you to do the eulogy, but my mother called a pastor from a church we attended as kids, and he did it, but I wanted you to know. Again, significance is walking alongside other people in their lives in the muck and the mire, the ups and the downs. There's value in your life. There's value in what you do. Redefine success. Allow yourself to redefine it. Understand that value. Share it. Another thing I had to do was I had to recognize what I call anyone can be ordinary, dare to be extraordinary. We talked yesterday about the Tim Tebow Foundation and wanting to help raise money for children in the Philippines. I find Tim to be an extraordinary human being, not because of what he does from an athletic perspective, but from as a man who believes he's called to make a difference in this world, both domestically and globally, helping children. It's his calling. And I'm a firm believer where you find your passion and your desires meet, you often find purpose, right? So what I started doing, I was looking at people and I said, well, what makes each of us extraordinary? I've got friends who've survived cancer. I've got friends who travel the world, speak on great stages. I know multimillionaires. I know people who've owned multiple companies, all these different things. Some of them are living their extraordinary life. Some of them are not. The difference is the person who decides to live a life that they are called to live, that they're excited to live, that aligns with their purpose, that they do for themselves and those that they impact and the Creator that they serve, is way different than living a life that is exciting and fun. You don't have to jump out of airplanes, live on yachts, have millions of dollars in the bank to live an extraordinary life. You have to do one thing to do that. One thing makes you extraordinary. That's living the life you were called to live. Live your life fully alive. I told you Henry hired me as a young man. There are many people that poured into my life. There's a gentleman named Daryl. I remember calling Daryl one night in Tennessee, and I said, Daryl, I don't know if I can do the sales thing. He said, what do you mean, Evans? I said, I feel like we only get paid when people are sick. We're selling to doctor's offices. And he said, well, sometimes we do sell things and when people are sick. He's like, but you know what else we do? We also help doctors take care of people, prevent illness. He said, if you feel like you're called to do this, you're an extension of a team to help people, and that's extraordinary. I said, okay. Years later, I go to a doctor's office as a client of mine. They said, Evans, we need a new defibrillator. I'm like, we just sold you one. What happened to that one? Well, we had to use it last week. What happened? A lady came in the office. She coded. We had to use a defibrillator on her. We brought her back to life. She stayed alive for 24 hours. Her family was able to come out of town and see her one last time and tell her goodbye. It's extraordinary. I've watched a doctor walk down the streets, a friend of mine. We fed the homeless on Friday mornings and we walked the streets. And it's cold outside. As hot as Columbia gets, it gets very cold in the winter too. We walk by this guy and he says, what size shoe do you wear? He goes, 13. The guy had nothing on his feet. And I watched this guy take off these $300 boots and hand them to this gentleman. And he put them on his feet and he thanked us. I went back a week later. The guy didn't have the boots anymore. No idea what he did with them. But I found it extraordinary and selfless that someone would give to someone else without anything in return. There was no expectation. I think about all the people that I've met over the years who have done acts of service, who have given and given and given. And I realized that what I'd been doing was living for me. We recently talked to someone about legacy and what it meant to leave a legacy. Oh man. I don't know about you, but I can really love myself. I can really want to be someone and leave a legacy where people know who I am. I went on a radio show with Lisa McDonald. If you don't know her, I encourage you to look her up online. Lisa McDonald, Living Fearlessly, fantastic lady. And I'm on the radio show and she said, Evans, what do you want people to remember as your legacy? And I'm kind of ashamed of it now, but I had to say it to work through it. I said, Lisa, I hope when I'm dead and gone, people say, I love God. I love my family. I touched people's lives and impacted a lot that I knew, and those that I didn't know, they were still impacted. I got most of it right. But I was asked this week, what's the worst legacy you can leave? The worst legacy is that I did it all for me. And when I'm doing it all for me, I'm living out those definitions, standards, and expectations of other people because that's what we see in a culture today. That's what we see in a society. It's interesting to me how we have slogans and things out there that tells you to be an individual, go for it. You can do it as an individual. But yet, on the flip side of that same advertisement, we also see, but you want to do it with us. You want to be part of this team. That's the only way to be successful and do it. And it's this rub that we go through. What makes it even harder as a father trying to raise children in this world to say, son, you can still make a choice. I'm going to pour into you until you leave my home and say, this is what I believe to be successful, son. This is a story that you're writing. This is where I find value and significance in your life. I see these God-given gifts, skills, and talents in your life, but you will eventually have to go use them. And it's hard in this world to do that. So we go through this lawsuit. And I told you we get through this. I realized these three things. And life changed that February. I made a decision to quit living just for me. People ask me all the time, well, Evans, it's not in the cards for me. I had a gentleman in Malaysia 3 weeks ago. Evans, what if people say, I can't be successful? It's not for me. I'm just this person who does this thing. It's not special. It doesn't matter. My response is, there are so many people, we'll never know their names, that do incredible things that don't make the news. One, doesn't always sell. But two, they're real everyday heroes, right? There's a story in the Bible that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Jesus and the disciples are out, and he's standing on the shores preaching. And they get in this boat, and he says, we're going to go to the other side of the sea. And they get in the boat, and Jesus falls asleep in the boat. A big storm comes out of nowhere. And the disciples are sitting there trying to get the water out of the boat, and they're freaking out. And they wake Jesus up and they say, do you not care if we perish, if we die, if we drown? This is bad. This is really, really bad. And he wakes up and he says, be still. And he calms the storm. And what's crazy about that to me is a lot of times we have the answer to fight through the storm right there in the boat with us. And we forget. We choose to lean on ourselves to be strong. But again, isn't that somebody else's definition? Standard of me as a man, as a husband, as a father, to the one that always have the answers? We came through that storm. That doesn't make me special. That storm was difficult. It hurt in a lot of ways. But when you go through that storm in your life, I dare you to plant your feet firmly. I dare you to try and outlast it. Again, it'll come. Prepare for it. The best thing I can give you to prepare for it now is to really start thinking about how do you define success in your life? Do you recognize the value and significance of your story that you write each and every day? Are you living small? Are you living fully alive? What have you done to make sure you're prepared? Take that opportunity now. I promise it'll make it easier down the road. And I'll leave you with this. When you think about what you do, there's this thing I think about a lot with tombstones. Think about your life. It's often described in a little dash between two dates. And I've always thought it was ridiculous that the dates are written and the dash is very, very small. Because how does that small dash truly represent an absolutely enormous, large, big, long life? Write your story. Embrace it. Dare to be extraordinary and redefine success. Thank you.